Alright, Ford Fusion Sport 2018. Got a couple things for you here today. We've got an axle seal, and we've got some brakes. So left hand side, the axle seal, driver's side. Let me show you. Noticed this the other day when I was changing the oil. There's the end of the axle, goes into the transmission. I noticed some moisture all along from about halfway, and then all the way down, and then underneath the transmission up in there, it was wet. It wasn't dripping, it wasn't soaked, but it wasn't dry. So I did clean it off when I did the oil change. Came back a couple days later, looked again, the moisture was back, so we've got a axle seal leaking. It is very common on these, on the Fusion Sports, the 17 through 19, to have the axle seal leak on the passenger side where it goes into the PTU, but I've not seen that with mine. This is the first one I've had. This thing has 106,000 miles. Kept up on the maintenance really well on this. So anyways, but we're going to pull this axle out. We're going to replace the seal. I'm going to try to walk you through this. This is not going to be the best how-to video, but at least I'll show you the premise of how it's done. First thing we got to do, obviously, the wheels off. We got to get the axle nut off. We're going to get the caliper off, take the rotor off. We are going to take the two bottom bolts for the strut off. You can see my paint marks. This is a cam bolt for the camber adjustment. I do have the lowering springs on this, so I have to adjust camber. So I need to be able to put that back to where it's supposed to be, so I know where to line that up when I'm done. I will always go back and check it on an alignment rack after I'm done, just to make sure you don't want to burn up your tires. But so we're going to get into this, and we'll be back. Alright guys, let me show you something. Axle nut on this is a 32 millimeter socket. I've replaced these axles before. There's your axle nut. I will tell you, by the book, these have to be replaced when you take them off. You're not supposed to reuse them, but we're not going to do that today. When I did service these axles before, I put some axle grease on the splines of this axle. I just took the axle nut off. Now I do live in the Rust Belt. Not even seized. Will come right out by hand. No hammering, no tapping, no nothing. Best thing you can do, and I'll show you when we get the axle out, is to put a little bit of axle grease on the splines that go inside of these wheel hubs. It'll save your life in the future. And then also, once I get the axle nut on and tight, I'll take a little bit of black spray paint. It doesn't matter the color. Put some kind of Rust-Oleum or rust preventer spray paint and spray this area down and get this coated so the threads don't rust on the end of this axle where the axle nut leaves them exposed. So we're going to take the caliper off. On the back side here, there's your caliper bolts. Now there are two plastic covers you have to pop off that cover the inside of that. The correct Allen key for this, let's see if I get it to zoom, 7/16. Goes in, fits like a glove, no movement, snug as a glove. Okay, so we're going to take those off. I'm going to get this caliper off, I'm going to get this rotor off, bracket off, and I'll come back. Alright guys, so let me show you something. Caliper's off. I am going to put a hanger on this and push it out of the way, but I want to show you this. So the slide pins or caliper bolts, whichever you want to call it, this is what you're looking at. These should slide inside of this rubber boot in and out freely. So mine do. They're a little sticky. I'm going to pull those out, clean them up, re-grease them. Sil-Glide product is what you should be using on these guide pins. Let me show you here. So it should be nice and smooth and clean. It's just a little dry in there. It's been a long time since I've serviced these brakes, so that's pretty normal. But we'll get those cleaned up. Pads. On the pads, this outside pad, this should be an adhesive backing on here. Obviously it's going to wear out with heat and dirt and rain and water, you know, washing the car, everything else. But technically the back of this pad here should be sticking to the back of the ear of this caliper, because these don't have pad separators to keep the pads away from the rotor when you're not on the brake. So you don't want the pads laying up against the rotor all the time. You want them pulled back just a micrometer. Most cars have little clips that go on the brake pads here, and they spread them, so pad spreaders basically. So, but these don't have them. The inboard pad has clips that go on the inside of the piston, so these are fine. These get clipped to the piston, so there's no issue with those there. Let me show you. I've got a new pad here, and I will tell you, on a Fusion Sport in our year range, these Motorcraft brake pads is what I've been using, and you can see this blue label here. This is the adhesive backing, so you peel this blue cover off and it's sticky. Just make sure that these ears, these 3 ears on this caliper, are clean and dry, so it'll stick real well. There's what the face of them look, and these are pretty beefy pads. So we're gonna get this cleaned up. I gotta get the bracket off, move this caliper out of the way, and we'll be back. Alright guys, caliper bracket's off, rotor's off. The bracket bolts, 18mm, 2 of them. Rotor comes right off. I will tell you, I hate living up here in the northern states. This was a brand new hub assembly a year and a half ago, maybe a little over that, and she just rusted right over. So I'm gonna clean all these threads up, get the rust off here. I'm gonna clean the surface of this up. You want to do this anyways when you replace your rotors. You want to clean the surface of this hub plate. So we're almost there. We're gonna take the 2 strut bolts off. We are going to take the outer tie rod off, and we'll be back. Alright guys, here's where we're at. 2 strut bolts are out. Axle's almost out. I'm gonna leave right here for a second. I'm gonna show you something. See this green washer? For some reason, I guess maybe engineering flaw, this washer needs to be on the front of this axle before it goes into your knuckle. I guess there's an issue with the measurements or a gap or something, but if you take this axle out, make sure this washer is on here. If not, go up to Ford and get one. You can't, so that's the only place you can get it from, is from Ford. It's not an aftermarket part. But anyways, thought I'd show you that because that is pretty important, especially when you swap a new axle. The new axle does not come with that. You have to buy that separate. So we're almost there. I'll show you my cam bolt here. Some of you guys have probably seen these, some of you haven't. It's a bolt with a cam lobe on it. It's hard to see, it's not a very big one. I didn't have to adjust my camber by a whole lot, but that's the cam bolt. Now I will tell you, I did not undo my sway bar link on purpose. I left it in there, so you're gonna fight when you get these 2 bolts on and off. You're gonna fight with the strut assembly wanting to turn left or wanting to turn that way. It's not gonna want to keep itself straight because that sway bar link's putting pressure on it if you only have this side of the vehicle in the air. So figured I'd give you a tip there. The nuts for these 2 factory are 24mm. My cam bolt's different, so my bottom one was 24. The other side you don't have to worry about. You don't have to hold to it. There's splines that lock that bolt in place right on this side. Let me show you. So these knurls right here in this bolt will go through and they'll lock this bolt into this flange right here. So you don't really have to hold anything here, you just use a good impact on this nut, and then you will have to hammer out these bolts because these knurls. Now if you look, they knew you were going to have to do this. Come on, focus. So the first part of, there it is, the first part of the head of this bolt is nothing but a flat bendable surface, and the threads are raised off of it because they know you were going to have to smack this bolt with a hammer. So that's what that's intended for. So don't be afraid to whack these bolts out of here, and then this knuckle will fall out, and then we can start working on getting the axle out. Alright guys, let me try to get you in here and show you the axle here. Now, I have a drain pan ready. You're going to lose some fluid. Completely normal. Oops. Hi guys. There we go. Okay, so I've already popped it out off of the clip. Now, bear with me, I'm gonna try to do this one-handed. So I've got a kind of a medium-sized pry tool. Put it right there. You can see the axle transmission housing. Put it right in there in between it. Just tapped on it, tapped on it. I'm not beating the tarnation out of it. Tapped on it, and it popped off. And then I can use my pry bar to just kind of push it back a little bit. As soon as it started leaking fluid, I'm going to stop and I'm going to let it do its thing. Because you're going to lose fluid no matter what. And we're going to replace that seal. So however much fluid wants to come out of this thing with the axle out, it is what it is. So we're going to pull this axle out here in a second, and then I'm going to show you the new seal, and we're going to swap the seal out.